Welcome to TrekTable, your live stream ritual.
Holding Trek space for
Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color,
queer or otherwise,
and our allies.
Hey, and welcome to the TrekTable. It is Friday night, podcast night for us. Welcome to our friends in the chat. We see you. What's up, everybody? This is the TrekTable, holding weekly Trek space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color, queer or otherwise, and our allies, as you heard from some of our previous TrekTable fan bam. We're so excited to be here on the Geekish Network. What's up? I am your host, Dayla, and today I'm holding Trek space for all those long-distance languages, from whale songs to whistle speak. Twiddly-diddly tweets.
I am your co-host, Claudia, and today I'm holding Trek space for sharing your wins, just like Tilly did.
And hi everyone, I'm your guest host guest co-host Navia, and today I'm holding space for Star Trek and for other people's feelings, especially Culver's.
Yes, thank you. Welcome everybody to the TrekTable. We like to start by acknowledging the land that our teams are on. Here at the TrekTable, we come from a lot of different places, so we want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, the Chumash, the Quiche, the Ohlone, the coastal Miwok, and the Puyallup peoples. We are grateful to the indigenous stewards of these lands and the ancestors who have come before and those who are here now, and of course, those who have yet to come. And we invite you, our listeners and viewers, to be an acknowledgement of the land that you are on and research that. Go ahead and take a breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Thank you all so much for joining us today as we hold Trek Space, a term that we had to coin for ourselves because we want to hold Trek Space for women of color here in front of our live digital audience on our partner network, Geekish Network. What's up? What's up to our friends in the chat? So excited to have you here. Or maybe you're catching us on the rebroadcast on either the Geekish Network or the TrekTable on our YouTube or on our podcast.
And all of our music for the TrekTable today is lovingly supported by our favorite Chicanx rock band, Quetzal. You can follow them at Quetzal Music on Instagram and see our show notes or the chat for a link to their merchandise and more.
For sure, we want to welcome you today to episode 52. There's a lot of welcoming, and there's going to be a lot of arriving, a lot of departing, right? We're in a constant state of travel. We want to say thanks to everybody for showing up for this episode and this conversation as we talk with women of color, and we dive headfirst into the episode for Star Trek Discovery, episode 506, Whistle Speak. So if you are looking for an unspoiled disco experience, we love you. We want to invite you to pause, go watch your thing, and then come back, because we are about to be in full spoiler zone. Spoiler zone is going to be in full effect. We're going to talk about all the alls of the spoilers for not just Star Trek Discovery season 5 up until now, but like kind of almost every Star Trek. we love this. We love the Star Trek here. So just want to warn y'all, love on y'all, and just give you that warning.
We are so glad that you're joining this Black, Indigenous, women of color Trek conversation. Hello and welcome. And so that we can build together, how are you entering this conversation as a Star Trek fan? Please let us know. Are you Star Trek curious? Are you a Star Trek newbie? Do you come from a Star Trekking family? Are you an OG Trekkie? Are you a Star Trek femme? Are you a Trek zaddy? A Trek baby? Let us know in the chat.
All right, so as you know, we're at episode 52 of the TrekTable. I'm super excited that is happening. Tonight we're going to dive deep into Star Trek Discovery episode 506, Whistle Speak, written by Kenneth Lynn and Brandon Schultz, and directed by Chris Byrne. I'm super excited to welcome back Claudia to the show. Maya, Mama, and Courtney are out on leave this week on away mission, so we send them love and goodness. And I'm super excited that, like, by the magic of Claudia, Navia has beamed in to join us. So we're going to meet Navia in just a minute. We're also going to explore this episode in a couple of different ways. We like to play a game called Popcorn Recap or Disco Recap. Claudia's got some great TrekTable questions for us so we can dig into this episode. We'll talk about the disco design and design things that we noticed on this planet. And in this episode, we'll round that bend and get deep as we jump into thematics. And then we'll share a signal boost of another woman of color content creator, our final thoughts, and gratitude. We want to welcome everybody who's assembled here in the Geekish Network chat, as well as our TrekTable assembled. And we like to do a check-in. We like to go around and ask people how they are. So we want to invite folks to tell us your name, your pronouns, your access check-in, and how you identify as a Star Trek fan. Okay, I see in the chat already some OG Trekkies are here. So get it. All right, I'll go first on the table. I'm like so excited. What's up? I'm Dela. My pronouns are she, he, they, or Dela. Visually, I'm a mixed Filipinx person. I happen to wear the same shirt this week that I wore last week. It's one of my favorite water blue and white shirts. I'm in front of a big bright blue wall. I am my access needs are met. I might be drinking a little bit while we talk. It's like I haven't had dinner yet, but I'm gonna hang in there. I identify as a minutia loving Trek fan. Like, I love all of the things of Star Trek and the minutia of the narrative and the science and the fiction and community. So I'm about that. And I would just say, like, I'm very poly sci-fi, and I would say I am poly celestial because I love all the stars. I really, really, really love Star Wars and Stargate and Battlestar Galactica and Firefly and Farscape, all those things. But I did start the show because my primary science fiction relationship is with Star Trek Discovery. And because this show is back right now, I'm living my best life. So that's how I'm definitely a disco head. So that's how I enter. Claudia, I'm going to invite you. Go ahead and check in. How are you doing today? Would love to hear how you are.
Hey, hello, everybody. I'm Claudia, pronouns they, theirs. You can also use she, her. A visual description. I'm an African-American woman wearing a Star Trek shirt on the set of the original. It's a green screen. I wish it was real. And my access check-in is that I've got some allergies going on. So I might blow my nose at some point. It might happen during the show. I'm trying to do it only during the music breaks. Also, I might have a muscle flare at some point inside of our show. So if I pull a face, I'm pulling a face at my muscles, not at Star Trek, never at this episode. And other than that, all of my access needs are met. And I come from a generational Star Trek loving family. But as with my colleague Dela, I'm poly sci-fi fantasy. I love it all.
I love it. All right. So thank you, Claudia. And thank you so much for this connection to welcome our next guest host. Navia is here with us today. She's a podcaster, creator, amazing content creator. I believe you said deep Star Trek fan at night, and you work in a corporate hustle during the day.
Yeah.
And you make amazing content on TikTok at that girl AYVAN. And so excited to have you here at the TrekTable today. Navia, can I invite you to go ahead and check in and tell us a little about yourself?
Hi, everyone. So I recently learned the importance of pronouncing your name correctly. And my name is actually pronounced Navia. And I say Navia all the
Navia.
time, just because I grew up in like the
Navia.
United States, right? It's Navia is how you
Navia.
pronounce it.
Navia.
And I'm still working on like trying to introduce myself that way to people as well. Usually I'll go, hi, I'm Navia. So it's
Navia.
not your fault. That was my fault. But yeah, so Navia is what I'm trying to say correctly more often. My pronouns are she and her, and I identify as a first generation Trekkie. I was the one who discovered it in my family, and I brought my little brother into it. And hopefully, when I have kids and nieces and nephews one day, I'll like slowly bring them into.
Yes. Welcome.
We're all just so excited. We're like, yes, your younger brother's going to love
Yes.
Star Trek. Yes. Well, final business before we jump into our discussions, we would like to name our TrekTable agreements.
We want to welcome all who enter, whether you're a newbie or or a first generation Trek fan or someone raised in a Star Trekking family. Welcome. We want to build this space together. Whether you use TrekTable as your nerdy exploration or as part of your self-care ritual, TrekTable is a weekly space for you to put down the world for a second and just come into the Trek space.
And this is a space for Black, Brown, Indigenous, femmes of color to be a fan, a geek, a nerd, and explore the vastness of the Star Trekking multiverse.
TrekTable is also a place for our allies to come, engage, and explore as well. This is an opportunity for allies to hold space and focus on insights, perspectives, and experiences that we may not be familiar with.
And now that we are all here, we want to remind you that we seek to build an environment of mutual respect and listening. We understand that we're going to disagree, and actually that's part of the fun, but there's enough chaos and strife happening in the world. So let's keep our phasers on stun.
Yes, yes. All those things being what they are, we invite TrekTable assembled and our friends in the chat. Go ahead and take a breath. Breathe in all those agreements. And exhale.
All right, let's get into some Star Trek. I want to kick us off with our first TrekTable question. I'm posing it not only to all of us inside the podcast, but I'm posing it to you in the audience and also to you in the future. You must answer this question. What's up with COVID? What's the deal with COVID? Ridiculous speculation is strongly invited. All right, welcome back. This is Claudia on TrekTable with your first TrekTable question. It's a very important, serious question that I would like you to ridiculously speculate on. What is the deal with COVID? She's such a mysterious figure. He's always like looking tight in those suits. I never trusted him for one hot second. Like every time I saw him, I was like, he's going to do something bad to the characters I love. And then he just can't, like he kept coming correct. But I'm still suspicious, y'all. He seems so sus. What is up with COVID? I'm going to start with you, Dayla. What are your? I need you to like give me some guesses about what is his deal.
I think that COVID, he knows too much. I think he's the head. I mean, he seems to be the head of whatever version of Section 31 we have right now. And he knows too much. And every time we go into this white room with him, which reminds me of the Matrix build room, I'm like, y'all are really committed to this room. I'm waiting for Neo to show up and ask for guns. Lots of guns. But here's my thing. I think he knows too much and he enjoys it. And I am particularly fascinated as a writer that he loves himself an original 21st century yellow pad.
I gotta say, I love me a legal pad too. I was like, respect, come with it. This is why I think he's a traveler. He's like he's like our favorite Crusher son. He's like the youngest
Wesley.
Yes, young Wesley. I still think of him as young Wesley. He's a grown adult. We saw him on Picard being like, I've been through it. Being a traveler's complicated. I've messed things up. We're never going to see those stories, but I'm really curious. So yeah, my guess is that COVID, he'd been traveling through time. He'd been traveling through dimensions. That's why he knew all that stuff about how to help the Empress Georgiou out. Okay. What's your guess? And actually, how do you pronounce your name again?
Navia?
Navia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So hear me out. I think this is about to be a little crazy, but I think he might be a Terran. Wouldn't that make a lot of sense, especially since we know they disappeared, like into the general public?
Ooh, yes.
Right? He's from the mirror universe. Okay. I cannot wait for us to find out what his actual deal is.
Yeah.
Like, are they gonna? It's the last season. They have to explain it. I really hope they don't make me buy comic books after this show is over, so I can find out what is Kovic's deal.
Well,
wait, you have more.
Yeah, we're getting a movie, right? So they might tell us in that too. So we might have to wait a little bit longer.
All right. Well, I'm holding out hope.
Yeah.
And that was TrekTable question number 1.
All right, all right. And with that song Matanzas by our favorite band Quetzal, we know that it's time for popcorn recap or disco recap. The game is really simple, and Navia, this is your first game, so
Yes.
we're gonna love on you and let you love on us as we try. We wanted to figure out a way to tell the plot, and so we devised this game. 2.5
Uh-huh.
minutes, chunklets of plot, as much as we can get. We've been close, and we will strive today. So I'm gonna ask Brandon if you could go ahead and give us our counter. I hope you have that. We're getting ready to recap the plot of episode 506, Whistle Speak. Oh, sorry, Brandon. One more time. Go back. Too much intro, Dela. All right, so everybody take a breath. All right, now Brandon, thank you.
All right, so the crew is trying to figure out what this clue is. It's a bottle of water, but they can't figure it out. And Captain Brennan's like, figure out the history of the water. Where's this water from? But then she's beamed into the White Room by Kovich.
And then Kovich tells her that there's a different Star Trek ship searching for Mullen Locke, so she needs to not worry about that. They need to focus on the clues. And so he suggests they study who made the clue. And he gives Michael Burnham a piece of yellow pad paper that includes all of the names of the scientists who are friends with Janal.
Meanwhile, Colbert is trying to figure out exactly what happened to him due to the recent events. So he meets up with his holographic grandma, who can read his mind somehow through an therapeutic work that Dr. Pollard, it's a hologram that he created, and she encourages him to actually check out his mind and body.
And then Book asks Colbert to help him get a job, but Colbert tells him he needs to like rest and like take a break because he like nothing is needed of him, so he just needs to go chill. And then Book asks him if he's tired of having all the answers.
Colbert goes back to Stamets to ask him to help him scan his brain, and he's worried that there might be something physically off with him because he feels so different, and Stamets agrees.
And they're not Denoblians, but it's a planet that the Denoblians visited. That's where we find ourselves. And Dr. Creel, or one of the doctors, built these weather towers, and they think that this means that there's multiple towers here. So they're trying to figure stuff out. Michael continues to love that she's a xenoanthropologist, and Ensign Adira is very nervous on the bridge, but Rayner's like, you told me you're ready. I think you're ready. Here we go.
And Tilly and Michael, they go down onto the planet because they're gonna they're having just a conversation about like, hey, how's it being a teacher or whatever? And then they follow the whistle speak. They can hear the whistle speak, and it sounds like poetry. And they're like, do this, and it rhymes. Go here, and it rhymes. And they run into this lady who was caught in the dust, this older lady. And then this girl Rav with the voice that was like inviting them there. And then she takes them all to the healing grove because the old lady passes out.
Tilly and Michael are worried about worried that they can't help save her because of Prime Directive, but the healers know what to do, and they use sound therapy to help her out. But it makes Burnham pass out.
And then this night, last 10 seconds, the girl then says that they start to hear that they can enter the summit if they make a request, and they do this mother run of devotion, and somehow it's supposed to bring the rain and the dust.
I knew we were never gonna make it, only because this episode had so much new stuff in it. It gave us new tech, it gave us new plot. Should I just keep us going? Should I just keep us going?
I think we should just button it down and finish this plot.
All right. So, Rav's father is like, yo, I'm an like official like spiritual person around here, and I don't think you should do this run. I don't think you should do this spiritual fun run. I promised your mom that I would protect you. And Tilly's like later being like, you remind me of one of my students.
They find out that the other weather towers have failed, and Burnham needs to get to the only one that's working and fix it. And if it doesn't, everyone on the planet will die.
Meanwhile, back on the ship, the husbands have had a chance to do a little brain scan, and Colbert is doing well. And he finally, big admission to his scientific husband, he's having a spiritual awakening based on his experience with not only coming alive after the mycelial network death, but then also being on Trill. And so he's trying to help Stamets prepare for some spiritualness.
And the older lady whose life was saved is trying to get Michael to not do the fun run. She says, you don't have to go to this high summit to be with the gods. You just have to do good deeds.
And then Rava's dad directs all the runners to line up, and they simultaneously eat something that exposes them to dust. And the challenge is to be thirsty and coughing and still run up to the end without anything to drink. And there's a water at every checkpoint to kind of tempt him.
Why does that remind me of middle school gym class? Okay. Michael sees the moss that's looking a little radioactive and is like, that's probably the place I need to go. So I have to jump out of this race. But you got it, Tilly, right? Cool. I'm going to drink water.
And really, I feel like Tilly volunteered. Tilly was like, girl, I got you. I can run. She can barely breathe. I love them. Oh, I missed it. But Tilly is tired, and then she's about to pass out and give up. But then Rava is like, no, girl, you can do it. You got this. And so then they keep on running.
And Artira is a second guessing them. Reynard is gruffly encouraging Adira, and they still feel insecure because of the time bug malls smuggled into their body. And he tells them that it's not their fault, and Adira does science to help Burnham on the planet.
Rava falls down right before the finish line. Her father's like, sorry, you can't run. You have an empty bowl. And Tilly being Tilly is like, no, we can share here. Let's run together. I'm going to pour some of my water into your bowl.
Oh, and then they're led into this vacuum chamber. And that's when the dad, the head preacher guy, is like, all right, it's time for the sacrifice. And they're like, what? And boom, doors locked down.
The vacuum chamber is about to suffocate them. Tilly's in conversation and feeling with Burnham and is feeling guilty for bringing in Rava. And then Rava actually teaches Tilly how to read the signs in the ancient language, and Tilly recognizes a symbol.
Yes, on the Serenity Wall. And so Tilly and Rava, they don't want to die. Rava only was doing this to make her dad proud. And the chamber is made of this material that prevents them from getting beamed out. So then Michael Burnham has to beam down and break the Prime Directive to convince him, just like open up the doors and let them out.
Tilly gets Rava to share a song, and Michael overhears it, and she shares that with Rava's dad. And she convinces him that she's using advanced technology and that he should break his religious laws and not sacrifice his daughter. And he asks if she's a god, and she insists that she's just a human.
So he finally relents. He lets them into the chamber last minute, lets the air come in. They are near death, and Dr. Colbert and team beam down to start to save their lives.
And Michael is showing this dude a small hologram of his planet because he's like he saved their lives and everything. And she's explaining that, the dudes, they left this technology to help save them, but they're going to have to, it keeps breaking down and they're going to have to learn to fix it. And he asked, does this mean there is no God? And Michael's like, nah, that just means there's something in addition to what you believe.
And it's a good thing that Michael ended up breaking the Prime Directive. Tilly shows her the markings inside the chamber, and it's a clue to the next step in finding the progenitor's technology.
And after all the alls, we're back on the ship, and Dr. Colbert has been brings his grandmother's mofongo to Book, and they have a connect and a moment. Book is kind of playing video games on the shuttlecraft because he's trying to occupy himself. And they sit and they eat and they talk about spiritual matters and life. And that, my friends, was Popcorn Recap. All right, so we've had a chance to run through what happened in this episode. Now we want to kind of jump into disco design and start to talk about some of the amazing and beautiful things that we got to see in this episode. And I want to let us kind of just dish on some things. I just want to say, if you're not watching the intro to the show, it's showing you Easter eggs, and week by week, it's actually changing. So I just want to shout out to the disco visual effects and title folks. Yeah, the puzzle thing there, it building every episode. So it's super cool. Wow. Yeah, and lots of Easter eggs like Mullenlock ship and all that kind of stuff. So don't just skip the intro. Watch it. It's got clues. Yeah. So I want to kind of open it up. I'm wondering if I could jump to you, Navia, and see if you could talk a little bit about design-wise, like what stuck out to you as our guest host on the show. I'm curious what was interesting to you design-wise in this episode.
For me, it was definitely the face tattoos of the alien of the week. I forget what that species is called, but those face tattoos were very cool. And it was just so pleasing to look at. I don't know how to explain it, but I was just like, that's just a very pleasing design.
I love it. Claudia, I'm curious for you. There's probably lots of different things that you were resonating on. Design elements this week that
I
struck you?
was bouncing back and forth between elements I've seen before and just appreciate that. Like I like the zippy beams. Like this is a unique kind of beaming where it's just like I'm here and then
Oh
zoop,
yeah.
here and zoop, I'm here. And I think it feels uniquely Star Trek, super fun. And also different than the other Star Treks. I like some diversity and difference in my Star Trek because I want to watch Star Trek all day long. I love it.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to say I see that Prodigy sign in the background. I love it. I love it. Okay. This is me commenting for our hearing audience. I'm commenting on the background in Navia's apartment. Navia's apartment?
Navia.
Navia, just keep correcting me.
It's okay.
I loved at the very top. Just thank you for like shouting out the Discovery visual effects team because they're doing some. I
Yeah.
feel like they are on purpose making the technology beautiful because that water scan at the beginning, it didn't have to be gorgeous like that. There's no good reason for a water scan to be that pretty.
For sure, for sure. I want to talk about, okay, we got retinal tricorders in this episode, and they just kind of ran
Yeah.
through it, but then all of a sudden, Burnham and Tilly had like cyborg
So
eyes.
cool. It was so cool.
It's so cool.
So I'm curious, like, yeah, that they're just dropping tech, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is not fair that this show is ending in 5 episodes or 6
Yeah.
more episodes. Yes. Other things that we saw in design.
The Mirror
well,
Enterprise is very
Ooh.
cool.
Yes, yes. I'm also thinking about Whistle Speak. Whistle Speak was
yeah.
a cool new not only a cool new technology, but a new technological idea. I don't think we've ever had them talk about this is how some species would find things across space and time.
Did you go down a rabbit hole and try to see if this is only an animal? Like, I feel
Oh,
like this is a human technique too, right? Like a lot of the different languages, like just different ways for sound. I mean, obviously humans use drums as a way to carry over, but I'm just curious, Claudia, did you go down a rabbit hole?
I fully did. It became my new special interest for a good couple of days where I was like, wait, because you know how it is. You're watching Star Trek and you're like, dude, is this real? Could this be real? And then you Google it and then you find out it's real and you're like, oh, yeah, there are all kinds of folks. They said that generally it was when you were in like jungle places, like places where like, oh, I'm not going to be able to catch you from a distance with my eye. So we have to have a way of communicating across distance because shouting will get lost in the trees and the bushes and the regular jungle sounds. But a whistle will cut through the Amazonian forest or the Chinese forest or the Mexican forest. It's a bunch of different cultures. So it's been whistle languages have been found all over the world, but most of them have died out, which I found very sad because now I want to find people who can speak to me in whistles. That's pretty neat.
Right. I connected to that. I will say I fell in love with the bowls, like the wooden bowls they were carrying.
Oh yeah.
And part of me was like, oh, I would love 4 of those for my table. Like they're just, the wood was so deep, the grain, just like, and then, I'm a water person. And so just that combination, I'm curious. Yeah. Navia, other stuff about this community that we met, any other, what do you think about the tower where they landed in?
Did they land in the tower?
Well, when they get to the summit and then
Oh.
Tilly and Rava are like in the air shrinking place.
I thought that was very cool. It was interesting to me that they thought that was their own technology or their own architecture because like it was so advanced. Like no one thought, oh my god, like this is not from this planet. Like they just accepted it.
Well, and when Burnham was like, this is a machine, and then the dad like goes and he pulls like a, I'm like, you're straight up turning a major gear, yo.
Thank you.
Why are we worried about Prime Directive right now? I don't understand.
Yes.
Why, chat? Why are we worried about Prime Directive? Okay. Any other, Claudia, coming back to you, any other loving things about this design?
Okay, I'm not sure if this is design or thematics, honestly, because I loved the entire exchange about the mofongo and how the grandmother's like, oh, the most authentic recipe of our family is that I made it in a replicator. Y'all couldn't cook and it tasted nasty. And when you weren't looking, I replaced it. I thought that was it felt like it was like a futuristic story that had feeling the authenticity of my contemporary life. So I just was like, I love discovery, but also why you making a ghost out of your grandma? Like that's some creepy technology because like they scan your brain and
Yeah.
based on your brain scan, they make a digital ghost that's supposed to help you with your grief. I feel like that would jack me up. So I'm like, maybe some things belong in the future is all I'm saying with that
Yeah.
hologram grandma.
Right.
That's
And I don't go ahead. Go ahead.
That's a lot of trust in the person who's holding all that data. Like, how do you not expect them to use that against you? Especially with Section 31, come on.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
this is going to come up. I think this is
You
going to
think
come up
so?
actually. Well, like, what are they like? They want to use the progenitor's technology to possibly make a person. We remember a couple episodes
Oh,
back.
yeah.
Stamets was mad excited about that possibility. Now you can scan somebody's brain to make a person. You could,
Oh,
I think
no.
it come up.
So many things. And I want to just say I am here for Abuela de Replicator.
She was fun.
And just, yeah, and like, yeah, just the like the way in which that whole exchange kind of brought us some new levity. And like he's been talking about his abuela all season.
Yes.
So I'm super happy she showed up and we get to see what she was like. And then just to watch yeah, I'm getting into thematics now, but yes, I'm all about it. All right. So all the alls. This has been amazing. And I know there's more for us to talk about. So let's go ahead and we'll get to that next place. But for right now, this was Disco Design.
And now, this is Claudia. I'm about to take you into our final TrekTable question. Again, post to everyone in here. This is also to y'all in the chat right now and to everyone in the future. TrekTable question number 2. What's your favorite religion or religious reference from a past Star Trek? So like not Disco, but any of the other franchises. We can also do Strange New Worlds. But yeah, religious moment that you appreciated from any of the Star Treks we've ever had. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. This is TrekTable question number 2. What is a significant or exciting moment that you remember that had religious significance? We have an amazing show where we've had religious themes in all sorts of the original series episodes where the characters almost went to meet God. We've had episodes where in Voyager you had Neelix, wrestling with the afterlife. We've had episodes with Seven of Nine wrestling with their own spirituality. I'm just curious, when Star Trek gets deep, it gets deep. What are some of your favorite moments? And I will once again start with you, Dela.
Thank you. Originally I was like, "Ooh, this episode Discovery," but then I heard the direction. So,
See?
I yes, I think the first thing that I was trying to figure out like, there's so much spiritualness in Star Trek, so I was trying to figure out what I would pull. But right now, I'm thinking about Deep Space Nine and the Prophets, and when they would connect to the ear. Is it the Ka where they're reading their Ka? Is that right? So just that the spiritualness of connection and yeah, I would say Deep Space Nine. And then also, yeah, it's a disco reference. So yeah, I'm gonna stay there. Deep Space Nine, Benjamin Sisko, the Prophets.
You don't have to be tied down. If you want to range, you can. I want to give you free reign.
I can't remember her name, but the queen in is she in season 1? She becomes friends with she's in season 2. She becomes friends with Tilly.
Yeah, the
She likes
queen of
Spumoni
the
ice cream.
dilithium, the dilithium planet queen.
Yes, and she's like, my planet and I are sisters.
Yes.
And
Oh
just
my
like
God.
her whole spirituality, and then just watching Pike have to navigate her name, which I feel really bad that I don't have in my mouth right now. But just the connection, and so really understanding the origin of the connection to dilithium and the mass production of dilithium was connected to this spiritual woman. So that's what I would drop.
Ooh, I love that. All right, so I of course had 9 million examples in my brain, and then just when I made this intro, I was reminded, and I think Courtney is the one that mentioned to this episode last week or the week before, that amazing nebula where the doctor's daughter was able to live a full life And it's so where I was like, oh right, time and space is meaningless. Like, like the prophets on Deep Space Nine, they're like time, nothing is linear. Time is not linear. And I love the idea of, for some aliens, yeah, anything goes. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Strange New Worlds and whatever spiritual nebula that was. It felt really deep and beautiful. How about you, Navia?
For me, it was that final DS9 battle between the Power Wraith and Cisco. As a kid, whenever people say, "Oh, there's good and bad," and like good and bad eveling, that's how I would imagine it. Like two people like going, yeah. And so to see that being played out in Star Trek, the literal thing what I was imagining in my mind was very cool.
I love it. I love it. Here's the funny thing. If we wanted to do an entire episode just talking about religious episodes or religious references in Star Trek, we would be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a little rare for science fiction shows. They usually kind of stay away from religion. And I love that this show lets you have it all. Ooh, Dela,
Can
please.
I offer really quick? Some friends in the chat. Paul says so much to answer this question. So much in DS9 when Kira has to explain faith to Dax and Worf.
Oh,
Yes, Paul, we agree.
Yes.
For sure. Yeah, so much. Ugh.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like I could, Trek Talk, that show exists because this show happened and Maya Mama and I can't stop talking about Star Trek. So I feel like we're going to have to do a Trek Talk that is just on religion and Star Trek. It's such a deep, good conversation. Thank you to those in the chat that responded to our Trek Table question. And that was our Trek Table question number 2.
Yes. And we're moving through the show. We have lots to say. Thematics is the section that we're in right now. And this is the part of the show where we like to separate things all together and also give ourselves a little bit of a chance to kind of also unbraid, I guess, and really open up and talk about what is resonating for us in this episode. We've been diving deep into Star Trek Discovery, episode 506, Whistle Speak. And just to kind of set us up, I think some of the things I'm really seeing is just as we're in this final season, this is another episode where we're looking at the relationship between science and spirituality. We continue to look at second chances and relationships and like, what does connection really mean? And as Burnham says early in this season, connection is a choice. It's not a skill. And so just remembering that, like, we always have to choose to connect to people, right? And I notice, and I would also say this feels like a very Star Trek Prime Directive kind of episode, to use the air quotes, where we have to have, the essential conversation about how will our actions impact these people. And at several points in this episode, Burnham and Tilly try to make choices so that the Prime Directive does not get violated. And then we ultimately have to cross that line because Burnham is trying, to do some stuff. And I have some stuff about that. But I kind of want to open it up. Claudia, I'm going to come to you first. I'm curious, thematically, what were you resonating about? What's hopping out for you in episode Whistle Speak?
Well, I'm still thinking about Trek Table question number 2, actually, and how much I love that in this episode, the Discovery, I think, is doing something that is more progressive than all of the other Star Treks, but also all of the other shows. It isn't pushing a strictly Christian paradigm. Like oftentimes when they allow you to think about the existence of a higher power, that idea is wrapped up in very narrow narratives and ideas. And I liked the way that they made room for the spirit and science to exist at the same time. And I recognize to a certain extent, Star Trek has always been doing that. Like the actor Leonard Nimoy, who played Spock, he infused his Judaism into the entire race of Vulcans, and it's still something that we're still thinking about today, right?
Right.
Which is so important. So yeah, that's kind of what's at the top of my head. But now you have said other things that have my brain burning.
We'll keep going. Navia, I'm wondering for you, what stood out to you in this episode?
For me, it was spirituality as well. I love how Culber, he's trying to figure out how he can combine science, or not combine, but like hold space for science and spirituality, and how he can do that with his partner. I thought that was a great conversation. And then him going to Book, who we already know is super spiritual, was just I love that moment so much.
And when he was like, books like, oh, spiritual, that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Like, why are you
No big
scared?
deal. Yeah.
Why are you scared?
Yeah.
You know,
Have
you're
fun.
trying to help.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. And I love that we also get to see Culber have full, like, I appreciate that in this show, we're exploring multiple modalities of masculinity and like what it means to be a man and be a man of faith or be a man of empathy or be a man of science, right? Paul in the chat is echoing that being a man of faith. I've always appreciated when Trek brings religion into Trek. And then also the Gene Roddenberry Star Trek notion of IDIC, infinite diversity in infinite combinations, right? And so really allowing us to live up to this ideal of infinite diversity and infinite combinations, and how do we make a universe for all of that to be. I was really struck by that Culber was like scared to talk to his homie or to his husband about like, I'm spiritual now, you know?
Yeah.
And just like resonating around the way in which there has become over the course of colonization and imperialism, the way that science and faith have like, there are different buckets now, but I think several of us come from different communities where that was, they were aligned, they weren't separate, they weren't in opposition to each other. So other thoughts folks are having, curious about
Well,
reactions?
I'm reminded of the show The Orville, which in many ways is like it wants to be Star Trek, but it's different. And in the Orville, they are aggressively not spiritual. They are not agnostic, atheist. It's an atheist universe and culture, and it's like it's in the plot. It's in the text. And I love that Star Trek is like, oh yeah, no, not only do other planets have religions, but like different people on Earth have religions. And also it creates the space of, is a Q a god or is a Q just another being? What does it even mean? Does it matter? Are the prophets gods? Is Cisco a god? I love Star Trek. But also, can I ask you about the Prime Directive? You was talking about the Prime Directive, and I like that you brought that up because y'all, I got some opinions about the colonialist nature of Star Trek storytellings. Because I love me some Roddenberry, my boy. But also, I feel like I would have been like, yo, that's kind of racist, bro. That's kind of racist. That's kind of sexist. That's kind of heterosexist. He was trying, but he was a man of his time.
Yeah.
So like for him, progress was putting Uhura on the bridge, right? But he's always thinking about this Prime Directive where they're not supposed to be sharing technology. And like, I feel like the story, if it had been Picard as the captain, they would have let that planet die because they had to, because of the rules. And I like that Burnham was like, I'm not gonna let Tilly die.
Yeah.
We're gonna give them rules. And thank goodness they did, because they wouldn't have gotten the clue if they hadn't.
Yeah, I was really afraid for Tilly there. I was like, what's Burnham gonna do? I knew she wasn't gonna leave her, but like there's a part of me, I was like, she could pull a Picard, like you don't know.
And this could be like the thriller in episode 6 of 10 where Tilly has died.
Oh no.
And and Tilly's been very cognizant of her own mortality, I feel like, since they jumped into the future, right? And even like her staying around to help Admiral Vance at the end of last season as the DMA. I was like, not DMA. DMA. As the DMA was like barreling towards Earth and the VAR, right? So yeah, I feel like there are times, and there are times when Star Trek, the colonialism and the imperialism shows up, and I'm just like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I'll even just say, like, when everybody is, Star Trek, we try to have our own day. I mean, tomorrow's May the 4th, and there's all that in the other celestial world. But I feel like in trying to for Star Trek fans to have their own thing, part of what has been uplifted is First Contact Day. And I just think about how problematic that is. And just like in my own family experience with imperialism in the Philippines, and like the way in which that contact, and how Filipinos, like, we celebrate the fact that we're the ones who killed Magellan, like he didn't get away. And I know like Indigenous Hawaiians celebrate like we killed Captain Cook, right? We stopped that. And so just really holding space for yes, I'm glad that they tried not to mess with this planet. I'm glad they were trying to still support, and so just really seeing that Prime Directive at times be really difficult
Can I
to.
ask one last question
Mm,
on this topic? And
mhm,
Navia, feel free to weigh in. I'm just
mhm.
curious about the denoblians of it all, right? Because like I'm like low key, I agree with the denoblians, right? Where they were like, you know what? Let's not like mess up these people's entire society, but like low key, let's save their lives and just give them some stuff that'll make their weather not kill them. But also because they didn't tell them about the towers, over time, all the towers
Yeah.
failed.
For sure. Well, I think it's the question of like, what are they going to, I mean, what is the after? I wish we had a little bit more in this episode
Mm-hmm.
after the reveal for like, what's the, I mean, okay. And then let's just do all the Star Trekking. This would be a second contact kind of mission. And who does second
Right?
contact
No, I hope not.
at this point in time? Because obviously it's not lower decks. And the California
Yeah.
class Cerritos, rest in peace. Go Captain
no.
Freeman. So for sure. Navi, I'm wondering if you have ideas about this question that Claudia is asking us.
No, I don't think I have anything to add further.
Oh,
Okay.
I do love that the Denoblians, I like the Denoblians as a race because
Yeah.
they're poly, they're mad. They're like, I think they're the only poly race that we've been told about in Star Trek in detail. Like we know a lot about
We do.
actually from Enterprise. But yeah, I like that they're bringing back aliens and stuff. I hope we see how the Denoblians are doing now. I would like to see the future Denoblians as well.
And I am curious, we always get like after reports and when we get into the next episode as they jump to find the next clue. So I'm curious to hear follow up about this planet that we're on. Helium, I think it's called.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I love the
Can I-
minutia, but then sometimes I can't name it. Yes, Claudia, and then we're about to go. But yes.
Okay. All right. Well, okay.
No. Go.
I'm sharing a silly idea then. So I got a weird vibe in this episode that Tilly wants to have a baby. I don't know where I got it from, but like I got a vibe. Sometimes I
Oh.
catch a vibe and I was like, oh
Uh-huh.
my God, Tilly wants to like have a baby. I don't know where I got it from, but I caught a vibe of like maybe it was her demeanor with Rava.
I mean,
Well,
she
when
did,
go. Yeah.
she did talk about like how teachers are like parents. There was that line. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I
don't
felt that.
know.
That's where I felt it. Where she
Yeah.
was like, I mean, I feel like this as
Yeah.
a teacher. I can
Yeah.
only, and she had that like little semi
Yeah.
draw it out. So
Yes.
yeah, I see it, and I also feel like we're starting to get the full glimpses of like what could everybody do at the end of this.
Oh yeah.
So Burnham might go back and teach at the academy. Tilly might have family with that mystery boy or mystery dude, from the
Yep.
from
In the first
reception.
episode. Why set us up like that? A
I
cute
know.
boy in the first episode, never see him again.
Maybe when we get back to but she did mention the girl who was like super happy and serving them in the disco in the season
Yes.
1 and 2 disco uniform was like, hi, like very. So yeah, all the things. I know that there is way more for us to connect about. I'm super happy that we got a chance to jump into this. Friends in the chat, we're curious too. Any other pieces that you're thinking about mulling over? We'd love to know. All right. So we want to say thank you to everybody for these insights and reflections and just general reactions to each other and our theories and what's going on in this episode. That was thematics for our episode 506, Whistle Speak.
And we want to give a special shout out to the TrekTable friends assembled in the chat today while we were recording this episode. Y'all have been amazing. Love your responses to the TrekTable questions. And do you want to get in on these chats? Y'all listening to the podcast in the future will join us next Friday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time or 9:30 p.m. Eastern time when we will be talking about Star Trek Discovery episode 507. It will start streaming on Paramount Plus on Thursday, May 10th. We strive to hold space for Black, Indigenous, Brown, women of color. Here are some resources that amplify and highlight the work of women of color content creators, community builders, and world shapers.
This week, we want to signal boost the Philippines in Wellness podcast. You can find them on Instagram at Philippines in Wellness. They promote health and well-being for the Filipinx community and beyond. Their podcast episodes range from so many things, from the why of wellness to ability advocacy to healing from sexual trauma, as well as financial wellness and literacy. I would say this is one of our sibling podcasts. Shouts out to Cheryl Sampson Ramirez, who is their creator and who's taken the helm and is doing amazing things with them. So we just want to give them a shout out. You can find them on Instagram, as I said, at Filipinx in Wellness, or on YouTube, Google, and Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Shouts out to that mighty crew. We see you and all the work that you're doing. And if you know a woman of color content creator, community builder, or world shaper that we should amplify, drop it in our chat, reach out to us on Instagram at TrekTable. We definitely want to give them that boost. All right. And as is the case at the end of every episode, we like to round things up with our final thoughts. I'm inviting our friends in the chat. Do you have a final thought for this episode? I'm going to go ahead and model and go first. All right. So I actually have two final thoughts. The first is that I love in this episode that Tilly helps Rava finish the race, and that we're trying to not destroy the Prime Directive. And I thought, oh, this would be an amazing opportunity to tell the story about how the gods rewarded this community for helping each other. And that's why the shift happened. And that's why these people lived after they went into the summit. So that's just me supporting in the writer's room. The last thing I want to say is I'm really curious if we're going to get to a point in this season where we have Stamets on the side of science and the progenitors tech, and Colbert on the spirituality side of it. So I don't know if that's what's coming. I have not seen the next episodes. So that's just me like spitballing my own stuff. All right. So that's what I'm thinking. My final thoughts. Claudia, I'm going to invite you to go next. What are your final thoughts for this episode?
I gotta say, it's weird watching the final season and knowing it's the final season and knowing the writers know it's the final season. Like, I can feel them in the writers' room being like, okay, how do we reference every single Star Trek that's ever existed before us? But also, how do we top ourselves from the previous season? And how do you top? Well, first you have an evil captain. But if you're going to top that, then maybe you're going to have like an evil gigantic computer that's going to destroy the entire universe. Top that, well, maybe you're just going to have like something that's so large you can't even understand it. It's like another alien. Like, it's so big, it's so unknown. Top that, God. The next, but it's not a big bad, it's a big something. And isn't that amazing that that there is no antagonist, but there is a mystery? I love it. And I feel like it's a gigantic gift to us as audience members for the final season.
I appreciate that. I'm gonna resonate on that for a minute. Navia, you've been an amazing guest. We're so grateful that you joined us today. You just jumped in full speed. I'm curious, as we wrap up this episode, talking about this episode, Whistle Speak, any final thoughts from you?
I absolutely love this episode. The first 3 episodes in the season, I was kind of a little like worried because I was like, this seems to have a lot of fluff, and but the last 3 have just been so good, and they felt like authentic Star Trek, which makes me so excited for the rest of the episodes. But this is episode 6, and we only have 4 left. I don't know how they're gonna wrap everything up. I'm so stressed because I want closure, but good thoughts. We'll get closure, but I'm so nervous.
For sure. Good thoughts. I want a movie. I want 2 movies.
Yes.
Like, come on. Especially because Star Trek Discovery has now already birthed 2 spinoffs, right? The Section 31 movie and A Strange New Worlds. And like, I'm gonna just lovingly say, to our friends Michelle Paradise and Alex Kurtzman, or whoever's all the alls of the producers, it's just sad to me that the 2 shows helmed by Black women are the ones that are like not getting past, that are ending. So just lovingly calling everybody in about it, and like, I see the future possible. I believe in the power of Star Trek fans. I mean, that's why we still have Star Trek today. So just gonna put out into the universe all the Star Trek love for Star Trek Discovery. Say thank you to you all, and say that these were our final thoughts for Star Trek Discovery, episode 506, Whistle Speak. All All right. And as we like to do, I'm like, oh, I was like, all the things
I
I'm reading.
know.
I got caught up. Sorry. I'm reading in the chat from Paul. Hopefully we have a super long finale. That's what I got caught up in. So I'm
Yes.
like, yes, super long finale. All right. So we're at the end here. And at the end at TrekTable, we always want to show our gratitude. This podcast would not happen without our village of support. And I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us for the TrekTable. Get your first looks at the TrekTable, inside scoops, and more when you sign up for our mailing list at trektable.com.
TrekTable graphics provided by our original graphics partner, Arthur Wong, and our new partner, Digital Click, a SoCal-based boutique marketing and design agency. Learn more about them at digitalclick.com.
We want to invite you to like and subscribe and follow the Geekish Network on Twitter, Facebook, IG, and YouTube, all the platforms. And for podcast subscriptions, you can subscribe to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and find us there. You can also join us next Friday for the Trek Table at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern here on the Geekish Network.
You can also like and subscribe to us on Instagram at TrekTable and YouTube. You can find TrekTable Podcasts on Apple, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. The high seas?
Ooh, I love it. Maybe, huh? Finally, as we get ready to end, I just want to say thank you so much to the Trek Table assembled. Thank you, Claudia, so much for being on the squad and all the things. Navia, thank you so much for joining us, jumping in today. We would love you to have you back. So there's only 4 episodes left. And I just want to say thank you all for sharing your insights and hopefully, you just being in the stream with us. I also want to say thank you to everybody in our chat. And special thanks to our technical director today who jumped back in with us. Thank you, Brandon Chang. It is so great to share space with you again. And just, yeah, as you said, every time I hear this music, I think of Star Trek in a really, really, really great way.
TrekTable executive producers, Allison De La Cruz, and our partners at the Geekish Network, Rodney Cahuo and Charles Babbs. Thank you.
And I want to give deepest gratitude to our content partners at Calling Up Justice. See you, love you, thank you.
TrekTable is a service mark of De La Projects, LLC.
We want to say thanks so much for joining us for TrekTable. And if you're here in the live chat, just to say Geek Beast is not happening tonight. They're on a hiatus. So we're at the end of the program night here on the Geekish Network. So I just want to say thanks for joining us at the TrekTable. I want to invite us to close this ritual today by taking one more closing breath. Go ahead and take a breath in and out. And we do hope that you will join us next Friday at 6:30 Pacific. We'll be holding Trek Space for you. Till then, see you later.